On today's episode, we're looking at Hasbro's plastic-free packaging initiative. Is it really saving money? Is it really saving the environment? Or is it somewhere in between? And also, is it any good, and can we expect this to be beneficial to us as collectors? All that and more right now. It's morphin' time! Hello, this is Soundout here, and today's video is inspired by Hasbro. Their recent movement to go to a plastic-free packaging, or at least a plastic-reduced packaging. Essentially, what we've seen from Hasbro recently is that they are trying to do a more ecological movement, which to me translates to plastic is expensive and we wanted to use cardboard. They're making plastic toys. If you're making plastic toys, you're impacting the environment because you're making something that does not biodegrade. So the packaging having less plastic doesn't really balance that out. I'm not going to debate this point too much, but essentially I don't think the ecological side of this is really what's important here. Because, well, they're still making toys. You're still producing plastic goods. Just because you take a little window out of a packaging or remove plastic twist ties out of a packaging, it doesn't really counteract the environmental impact. But as we know from the last couple years of the industry as well as the world in general, things have gotten more expensive. So Hasbro, in a move, I think, to reduce cost, they removed the plastic from their packaging for almost all of their lines. Now, this has caused some debate and controversy. I've seen a lot of videos covering the topic and different people's thoughts, and everyone has a valid opinion on this. Mint and box collectors are upset because some of the boxes don't have any windows anymore, so now you can't even see the toy, so what's the point? You're essentially just buying a piece of cardboard. Then there's other issues where there's a window opening and parts can be stolen out of it, like heads could be popped off of figures, like Hasbro didn't notice when there was the LeBron James situation with the Space Jam toy line. Like, that happened, and then now it's happening again with Spider-Man figures. So it's kind of really hard to figure it out, right? Like, I imagine anybody that's going into packaging design for Hasbro is like, I can't use a window, but then I also have to protect the figure, but then I can't, like, make it attractive to a purchaser. It's kind of a problem. Now, one thing I haven't seen anybody do yet, which is why I wanted to make my version of this video, is actually compare and contrast the physical packaging samples. So I have been buying Hasbro stuff from multiple lines for years, and I started building up the plastic-free stuff so I could put it all into one video. So we're going to be looking at things from Transformers, from Marvel, and from G.I. Joe. I don't have any of the Power Rangers or the Star Wars plastic-free packaging, but we'll just work around that as we can. Now, in terms of the overall impact this has on the toy industry, I also don't think it does. It seems to be just a Hasbro thing, at least for right now. I also have some examples we'll show of other people's companies and other lines that sort of give us an idea of what is the other companies doing. And the whole, it is cheaper to produce the packaging, is that giving us a price discount at Hasbro? The short answer is no, but we'll look into that as well. And with all this setup aside, the one thing I do want to stress with the plastic-free packaging is the windowless boxes have been an actual issue at retail this year. The Thor Love and Thunder basic figures have been clearanced out because the packaging is really unattractive to kids, and those are the kids' line, and they were gone out of stores before the movie even opened. And this is actually due to an effect called basically consumer bias, is that when you have a parent or a child or the average customer going into the toy aisle, if they see something small that's in a closed-face box, they're going to think it's a model kit or a board game or some kind of building toy. See Lego, board games, or just other buildable things. They're usually, because they're disassembled, will have a closed-face box. So the mental image of a customer going into a store, they see a closed-face box, they assume you have to build it. So it kind of throws it off when it's like, that's a pre-assembled action figure, and maybe the parent's like, I don't want to give my kid something to build, I want them something to play with, and they don't quite get that mental connection that it's already pre-assembled. Now, of course, larger items have used closed-face boxes for years, but that's typically seen as, oh, that's a large toy, it has to be assembled. So when you have fully formed figures in closed window boxes, it doesn't tell the consumer that that is a closed window box. Collectors like us who pay attention to these things would know, yes, but the average consumer that's buying stuff in stores, which is still the majority of people buying toys, are probably confused by what these actually are, and I think that that's a major problem, that the packaging does not tell you it's fully assembled, it's a good-to-go, ready-to-go action figure, and that's something to be improved on across the line. And of course, yeah, open window boxes, also a problem because of store theft, which may not even backfire on Hasbro so much as individual stores, employees having to fill out more paperwork, do returns, and then, maybe stores don't want to order their stuff anymore. It's entirely a possibility. But with all that, that is going to be something we're going to look at in the future and may do an update to, because we have to see how, as this packaging rolls out, how does it affect the retail experience? So far, not great, but maybe Hasbro can change people's minds as they just have it out more prominent over time. But for now, let's look at the packaging styles for Marvel, for Transformers, and for G.I. Joe, comparing and contrasting which one does it the best, as well as what can be improved on in all categories. So let's take a look at the plastic-free packaging. Now, before we talk about Hasbro's plastic-free packaging in general, I think we should talk about what's not going away, and that's these retro cards. So retro toy cards are becoming like a major thing in the toy market, and Hasbro kind of smartly said, we're not getting rid of the retro packaging for some of these lines. Because case in point, the Star Wars Vintage Collection, where it takes and puts modern characters in the old school packaging as well as remaking older characters. These are very popular. This line's been going on. This is Vintage Collection 202. I only collect a couple of these at a time, like for example, Ahsoka from Clone Wars. But in terms of the actual Vintage Collection, there are people that have every single release on every single retro card, and it's actually part of the experience. Now, while some of the cardstock quality has dipped, but luckily I think came back from what I was hearing. Overall, this is still a collection that it's not just about the figures for a lot of people, it's about the packaging presentation. So because of that, they're not changing this. Same goes for Marvel. Marvel's got this 3.75-inch line with retro-style figures, with the Kenner logo and everything. They're sort of pretending like Marvel had a really extensive 5 points articulation Marvel line. I think these are great. I think there's a certain market for them. I collect these off and on. Like, for example, I have Wolverine because he's one of my favorite Marvel characters. I have the Fantastic Four. I like hanging these up on my wall because I like the card art with the figure, but I would stop buying these if this went to a plastic-free packaging because that would just sort of ruin the experience. And then the retro-carded Marvel Legends, this is an older one, mind you, but I should have waited to open Beast for this video. My apologies, but when you have the retro carded Marvel Legends, a lot of these are different new versions of figures, but there is something about that retro experience that sells incredibly well. Now, I have noticed outside of the retail release ones, some of the exclusives for the Marvel Legends retro cards are a couple bucks more. They're not 25. Sometimes they're 27. Beast was like 38. It gets a little crazy with prices, and that's a whole different Marvel video for a different day. But in terms of Hasbro, they pretty much said, all right, well, here's our retro-inspired lines. We're going to keep that packaging for the time being, which is great. Though, unfortunately, I think G.I. Joe Classified's retro cards are going away, which is unfortunate. Now, of course, this retro-style packaging initiative to keep this going goes with their retro recreations. Now, these are different than those others, which are modern figures on packaging. These are meant to recreate original toys. I know the packaging on these is kind of weird, but this is like, here's a recreation of vintage Bosk. Not a one-to-one, because I have a vintage Bosk. It's not exact, but it's a Bosk nonetheless. Same for the new G.I. Joe O-ring sets, which do the same exact thing. Like, here's an O-ring style Cobra Commander in that 80s toy look, but he's, a updated mold, but he's still on that kind of retro packaging with the file card and everything. So for mint and card collectors, if you're buying Hasbro stuff, this is the stuff you have to chase down, these old looking retro things, because, well, what's the point of collecting mint and box when you can't see the figure? So since around 2014, Marvel Legends has been using a similar packaging style to what you see before you. Window box packaging, figure inside, name, side art, flipped side art, little indicator of a Build-A-Figure. Back of the package has a little bio in multiple languages, artwork, and then the Build-A-Figure readout. So with Marvel Legends being Hasbro's pretty much like, I think their best-selling brand, or at least Marvel in general being a best-selling brand, it is a big drastic shift to change the packaging because it's mostly stayed about the same. Now, Moon Knight here is one of the last to be released in this style packaging, as the Infinity Ultron wave is the last wave with plastic in the packaging, because starting with the Black Panther Wakanda Forever wave, which shipped first, but that's just because movie tie-ins, we went to this style packaging. So you can see that they have generally the same shape, but what I do appreciate about the plastic-free packaging, even though it doesn't have the plastic-free packaging like label on it, but we'll look at that in a moment. With the plastic-free packaging, it is smaller. Like, for example, this takes up less room than Moon Knight. And also, I've kind of hated this about Marvel Legends packaging, is the slope that's here, whereas with the plastic-free, it's flat, but it's still glossy, so they're still going to, like, slide around. But they do make it a little easier to carry the figures. Now, in terms of the actual packaging evolution here, of course, now we have a digital render of a figure on the front with the artwork in the back. We have the artwork on the side, and then you have a digital render on the back. What I do appreciate is that while these have the nice artwork pieces, you can see that you've got Namor's accessories in addition to the figure, so you know what's supposed to be included. And then instead of the Build-A-Figure being done here, it's done here, and it just lists the names but doesn't have the pictures. So it's a little less clear. Like, if you're not reading the names, like, you're probably looking at some of these like, oh, who's that? Whereas here you have names and faces, which helps with marketing. But overall, the visual style of the Marvel Legends packaging isn't too bad. Though it just kind of sucks that you can't see the figure, because if you're picking this up at online stores, it's probably going to be fine unless you have like a really weird Amazon situation. But if you're looking in a retail store, there's no way to tell if you have a Namor or if you have somebody else inside. And that's the unfortunate part, and I think the biggest concern from collectors. But I also just think in general, this looks like it could be a model kit. This looks like it is an action figure. And that's definitely something that's come up. Now, of course, I don't want to just float around this empty box because I've already opened them more. We're going to talk with the new female Black Panther because she's not even fan channel because she's popped up at Target. But this is a single pack figure, not in a Build-A-Figure wave. You can see the packaging style, very similar. The artwork on the side, they put a render of the figure standing stock instead of the Build-A-Figure readout, but the back of it's still pretty much the same with, you know, the packaging like that. But we're actually going to crack her open because I actually haven't opened her, and I thought this would be kind of like a fun part of the video would be to talk about just in general how it looks once you open these up for the first time. So I kind of know what to expect because I've opened the entire Black Panther wave, but let's see what we got. So basically, you cut the tape, and there's 3 pieces of tape. Notice as well, because I almost forgot to mention this, it does say plastic-free packaging, and it leads you down here. It's plastic-free packaging except tape and glue. Yeah, because there's still tape in these things. But once you pull this out, you've got a wrapped-up mummy. It looks really funny, and where are the accessories? And this is my problem with the Marvel Legends packaging. They put the accessories in, but they don't clip it in. So the figure is clipped into this cardboard, but the accessories are just like laying in there. So if you don't know those accessories, also why they give you the diagram, it could be easy to lose them. But you see we have this little paper bag, and inside this paper bag is the 2 extra hands she comes with. And yes, she only comes with 2 extra hands when the figure is like $25. You got the little like paper copyright info. And with this, you just gotta kind of like pull it apart, which is kind of awkward. Yeah. Hers is built a little different than the other figures. And then, yeah, you got your wrapped up figure. And then you do all this. Boom, there she is. So she seems fine. Like, I think it's a good, secure system. It's not like the figure's rattling around empty in there because you do have the cardboard holding it down. So figure-wise, I think it's fine. It is a little weird that she has 1 fist and 1 claw when she's got 1 fist and 1 claw. And why not put 2 fists on the figure to start? Female Black Panther here. She looks good. I'm not going to mess with her joints right now because that's not really what this is about. But essentially, she's fine coming out of this bag. I did have the comic book Black Panther from the wave come out with his like arm backwards and stuff. So hopefully it doesn't happen too often. But the figure doesn't seem squeezed or warped by the packaging, which is a good thing. So overall, I mean, I don't think it's as appealing as being able to see the figure, but the Marvel Legends packaging does have a bit of flair to it, and the figures do come out secure. The only thing I would change is that, yeah, have the accessories tied down in some way, because them just floating in the box means they could get easily lost, especially when hers are really tiny. Now, Marvel Legends 2-packs do come in a similar style box, you know, artwork on one side, figures on the other. On the back, you can see the accessories. And I will say that this is fine for what it is, but when you get to the, you know, like the 2-pack here, that's $56, the packaging is pretty sturdy because even though the actual cardboard is kind of thin, the cardboard inside is holding it up. But it does kind of suck when you see this kind of package and then right next to it on the shelf is this for $40. This is $16 more. You can't see the figures. This is $40. It's got a nice expressive thing, and it looks like you're getting more value. These are 2 new figures. This is 1 new figure, 1 reuse body. But, you know, Todd McFarlane doesn't play by the rules with the DC Multiverse line, but it is kind of funny to see, you know, sort of the more expressive packaging and this packaging, and this is cheaper. So I wonder if this is more inviting to the casual audience, something to be discussed in the future. Now, one thing I can compliment with the plastic-free packaging is that while we've been talking about mint and box collectors are kind of getting out of the game because they can't see the figures, I will say that this is somewhat a happy medium if we're going to be going with you have to have no plastic window or no window into the figure, because with the X-Men VHS line, which is exclusive to Pulse and Shop Disney, these look nice. They're way too big to be VHS tapes and probably could fit in actual VHS tape boxes, but the look and the feel of the VHS tape is pretty good, and I think it looks nice. So if you are collecting these and leaving them in the boxes, they at least look nice on a shelf, and I think that's something to go for in terms of this packaging initiative. Now, something that has been addressed by the marketing team of Marvel Legends, but has happened twice, and I want to put it down for the record, the render for Gore, the comic book version, shows joints without the visible pins, whereas the final figure does have visible pins. This is a case of the render was based on an earlier version of the sculpt as opposed to the final version, and that's something that just needs to be tightened up in the process as they switch to this new packaging. This happened again with the VHS style Mystique showing double jointed elbows, while the final figure has single jointed elbows like the original Mystique release. And so hopefully these are the only two examples that will happen on this, but it's just something that the Marvel team is going to continue to work on, and hopefully we never see this happen again. Now, Transformers is actually no stranger to plastic-free packaging or windowless packaging. For example, the Titan class and Commander class for years have been windowless. That's because they're large size and they're not fully assembled in the package to look presentable. But those aren't usually sold at retail. They're usually only found online, with some making it out to retail here and there. So when Transformers Legacy had their Commander class figure in a windowless box, it wasn't too much of a surprise. Nor was it a surprise when the Titan class figure did the same thing. We were sort of used to this. The thing that was surprising with Legacy, as well as this year's Studio Series, was the closed-faced leader class boxes. Now, I don't have any of the Legacy leaders just because so far they haven't gotten any of the ones I want. I want Dragon Megatron. This is a Studio Series packaging that's pretty much the same as what we used to have for Studio Series, so they put this artwork in place of the Transformer. Now, I gotta say that in terms of visual appeal, because this is a larger priced item at the $55 price point, just like with the Commanders and the Titans, it doesn't feel too weird to have a windowless package. Now, unfortunately, it is too small that if you wanted to swap it out, people could do that. And that's the unfortunate part, is that by closing off the windows completely, it's hard to tell if people have swapped the toy, whereas it used to be an easier indication. And that's already been a problem with Hasbro stuff for years, and they clearly don't care about that. So looking at this, though, I gotta say, putting artwork on the front as opposed to a picture of the toy works for a visual appeal, though you really don't know what toy you're getting unless you look at the back. So maybe the artwork is flashy and it'll get a kid to pick up the box, turn it around and look at the toy, or they'll just see the fancy artwork and move along. But that's not my decisions to make, that's a marketing decision. But in terms of the overall packaging presentation as a fan, I think it looks pretty good. What I'm not a fan of is the open window into the toy. Once again, I haven't bought a Studio Series in recent times when I've thought of this video, but having an open window kind of sucks. Just having this open window in any toy is kind of nuts. And I think it is preferable to having it completely closed off, but with Transformers, they have a lot of ball joints and parts that can pop off, and someone could reach inside. Case in point, the current packaging style for Core Class. Because Wheelie here, you pull him hard enough, he's just going to come out of the package. Like, there is, you know, with the Voyager classes, with the Deluxe classes, it's going to take a lot of work. With Wheelie, you pull hard enough, and you can get him out of there. And I think that Hasbro, as a company, shouldn't be making packaging that makes it too easy, because it legitimately is too easy with these boxes. I know that they can't be closed face because then you wouldn't be able to see anything on the very small price point, but having a window this big, not a good solution either. And also Generation Selects for years has been in styles of boxes like these, since they are online exclusives that occasionally get out to GameStop. And these, you can just cut the tape and see the figure inside, but you just don't have to worry about swapping on these because, well, they're just online exclusives. And they've recently changed to make sure that they don't have any plastic tie downs, but instead just have these cardboard ones, which I think are great and pretty awesome. So let's talk about mainline packaging. Okay, yes, I'm showing a Walgreens exclusive figure I got off Hasbro Pulse because I got lucky, but this is essentially the legacy packaging for the mainline Transformers. Case in point, here is Wild Rider's box, who's not in there. I do like the artwork on the side where the Autobots and Decepticons have half of a mural. That's pretty cool. But looking at the packaging, this is very similar to what we saw with Transformers Kingdom and with Siege and with Earthrise, except there's no window, so you can reach in. Now, Minerva here, I don't think has a ball jointed neck, so it wouldn't be too easy to remove her, but I believe part of the reason why she's not a headmaster is because of the packaging. It's probably also a budget thing, but if the reason she's not a headmaster is because of the packaging, change the packaging. But you can see, nice artwork, it has good visual appeal. The Legacy Evolution boxes, on the other hand, look awful. It's too much cardboard, it looks ridiculous, I don't understand what's going on. The thing is, it's interesting, is that even though there's paper tie-downs, cardboard all over the place, there's no label of plastic-free packaging. Now, they had reduced the plastic in the Kingdom boxes, and I know it was an issue with some of the accessories being hidden. So let's look at a Legacy figure and see if you can find everything the figure's supposed to come with, as it doesn't give you a list like the Marvel Legends would, just by pulling it out of the box. So let's pull out Minerva. Boom. There she is. Okay, so here's the figure, right? So where are her weapons? They're taped back here. So seemingly you come around here to cut the things off. You can find her accessories. And once again, it is a lot of paper. While they have reduced plastic, I know Hasbro keeps saying it's eco-friendly, but it's not really when you have this much paper. These paper bags, these aren't even bags. These are just rolled up paper. Like that is a lot. And so yeah, here's her light bar and her two guns, which would have been nice to mention that the light bar is a separate piece, as the pictures don't show that. But then once you get her cut out of here, you're pretty much good to go. I don't feel like opening her completely at the moment, but seeing just how she's laid out in there, it's not too bad, but there's a better solution to this, right? Like, you know, you don't want the head easily grabbable because it happened to some Silver Streaks. Wait, I think there is a solution to this. Hey, look, it's the solution to this. The Walmart exclusive Velocitron Speedia 500 collection, which outside of having a gigantic name, is the perfect Transformers packaging solution. Hear me out. First of all, window's not too big, you can't pull the figure through it, and these cardboard tie-downs are pretty secure. With Wheelie's packaging, he had plastic tie-downs, which are much easier to pull out. But here's the thing. They just recently said in a Q&A that kids prefer the vehicle modes while adults prefer the robot modes. So why aren't you just packing them all in vehicle mode? The adults are going to know what character it is, especially with the artwork there, and the kids are going to be appealed to the vehicle mode. And then by packing them like this, you can't actually like easily take stuff out of it. So you still have the window, so you can still see it without using extra plastic, and you can still, like, you know, appreciate the figure in the packaging if you want to. And also on top of that, we'll just use Wild Rider as an example. It's actually a bit smaller, like excluding the flap, I should say. It is a bit smaller. And honestly, this is the solution. I think the Velocitron packaging is great. It probably could use a visual boost of like graphics, but honestly, like, just start packing Transformers in vehicle mode again. It worked before, it can work here. So outside the tape, there's supposed to be no plastic in this packaging. Let's find out if that is the case. And also see how the accessories are packed. So yeah, so here we got the vehicle, and then here you got the accessories. So that's not really hidden. It's not like with some of the Kingdom figures where they stuffed them in between flaps of cardboard, and unless you were looking for it, you wouldn't have found it. Looking at you, Pterosaur. But there's the accessories. Same thing as Minerva, where it's all wrapped up in plastic. There's the car mode. That means the accessories are secure, so you don't have anybody stealing like weapons out of it. And then there's nothing on this that can get pulled off. It's totally like someone could handle it, and it's going to be fine. So I think this is actually the solution for Transformers packaging going forward, because I don't see anything wrong with this. In fact, this is preferable to what we've been getting otherwise. The last thing I wanted to show for Transformers was the Creatures Collide pack from Target, which I bought this for Goldbug, Ransack, and I didn't mind getting Skywasp and Scorponok. This is a plastic-free packaging, again, not labeled as such. It's weird. They will label them sometimes as, look, plastic-free packaging, but then others they won't. This one I don't quite like. Now, I do like the idea that you can look inside and see if the figures are there, and I can see the whole bag of accessories as well. But with this honeycomb pattern, yeah, it's plastic-free, but it's also going to be a dust magnet. So if someone was displaying this, say, Mint and Box Collector, the dust is going to go straight down through those holes, as opposed to a window where the dust would have to go in, which means there's going to be less dust going into the boxes. So I don't know if this is a solution either, but I do appreciate being able to look and see if all the figures are inside. It just takes a little bit extra work than the standard box. So let's talk about which one I think has done the best, G.I. Joe. So since Classified Series started, we've had this style packaging. window box that's got the star shape. You've got character artwork on the side that wraps around to the front. You have a number and like text spec stuff. And this has changed. This used to be a window with the cardboard underneath. Now it's just part of the outer cardboard, and then a nice little mural on the back. It's very international friendly, and it's very easy to produce. Now, of course, we got to remove the plastic because that's the initiative. So what was the solution? Well, they made the art the focus. So while Sergeant Slaughter here is a online exclusive to Fan Channel, and Kamakura here is an online exclusive to Amazon, looking at the solicitations, this is the packaging style we're getting for the entire line. And I actually think this works pretty good. For example, you had this really nice expressive artwork of Kamakura, this nice expressive artwork of Sergeant Slaughter with like all the arrows of slaughter. But most specifically, you have the figure picture. I think that was the problem with the Studio Series Leader Class packaging, was you got a giant image of sludge that was artwork, but you didn't see that it was actually a toy. Having the toy visible with the artwork means the artwork is appealing, and then it gets you to pick it up, and you look at it, and you're like, oh, there's a figure there. And then it may get you to turn around where you can see a figure posed, as well as a render with all the accessories. And I do like how they've kept the numbering and the little stat bars, because while the size is a bit different, it does have some consistency from the plastic to the plastic free. So I think this is a pretty good medium. Also, the cardboard is a lot stiffer than most other plastic free packaging boxes. And then for me, I can just cut the artwork off, which is the part I like to keep the most, a lot easier too, because it's not interrupted by the bubble. Let's look and see what you get inside with the packaging here, because, well, G.I. Joe did it a little differently. It's actually really cool. So, you know, once inside, there's nothing else in there. The figure is not obscured by like mummy wrapping, like the Marvel Legends are. It's not squeezed in. It's tied down, similar to how the Transformers are tied down, in this nice cardboard tray. And then look what the accessories come in. You got the 61, so you know it's Kamakura, but it looks like a footlocker, like something weapons would be stored in. Cut this here, and opening this up, you get the weapons, which are wrapped up in this G.I. Joe and Cobra inspired paper. So then this bag here is actually sealed, so that way you don't accidentally dump all the accessories out. You actually have to intentionally open it. And I really like this. Not to mention, Kamakura has swords, that's why I wanted to show him as well, and staffs, and these are nicely wrapped up in cardboard. And honestly, while I do prefer the plastic for the overall look, I think this is also a great way to keep the swords flat, because, yeah, having cardboard cutouts for them, a lot easier. And then let's also, like, just see if we can just, yeah, we'll just tear it open. Tears open easy, and then there's all of his heads and hands and extra stuff there. So honestly, yeah, pretty nice. Also, look at the box. So it says Kamakura on it. So I actually, while I would normally get rid of packaging, I would actually toss all of his accessories in here and keep it as, hey, that's Kamakura's accessories, and start keeping these boxes around. Which actually means I think that I like the plastic-free G.I. Joe packaging better than the regular. Because usually, you know, if we're talking packaging, which I'm a guy that opens stuff, packaging is an important part of the discussion for marketing as well as, you know, individual collectors. But I actually kind of like the, hey, here's your figure, and then here's your figure's accessories in a little box, which we're just doing this to make sure that, like, everybody's packed like this and it's not just Kamakura. I like the sealed bag. I like the sealed bag because it means you won't be able to lose it. I like that all the accessories are in this box so you won't lose anything like with the Marvel boxes. So yeah, I think G.I. Joe, honestly, pretty much a win packaging-wise. Now, while these are online exclusives as well, I did want to talk about how I really like the packaging for the multi-packs. So the Blue Ninjas here, you've got this wonderful canvas artwork of the Blue Ninjas, the figures, and then also on the side here, it's like a zoomed in shot of the artwork. But again, shows you all the accessories, has the number in place. They come with a larger foot locker, foot 51 Blue Ninjas. You can see the Cobra design has this little Cobra keypad, which is really, really fun. And the two figures are in their little tray together with the Cobra logo. And then here is the Cobra officer, the Viper officer and Vipers, which this is a fan channel release, I think. I'm not sure if this is full retail. This one has the stats on both sides instead of trying to include other artwork, which is fine. And then on the back, you got a nice action shot. I think having the characters in action shots, as well as having a layout of what should be inside, is a really good choice. Let's see what we got inside, because I actually haven't seen what's inside. So there we go. We got a long box, like a map. What else is inside this box? It's a little wide, so it's kind of hard to show. There we go. So this one isn't as cool, actually. Wow. So this is actually kind of interesting. So we have it under cardboard. This is to help prevent if the box collapses, the figures won't get damaged, which I think is great. But yeah, you only get this like sort of tactical looking box as opposed to the nice like Foot Locker design. And you don't get the cool like Cobra logo backing like you did with the Blue Ninjas. And then this has got just normal paper, not the G.I. Joe Cobra logo paper. So it's kind of not as fun. Yeah, this one's not as fun. And there's like a ton of tape. Like, there's a ton of tape wrapping up all the guns. I don't know production process-wise which was designed first, but it's a little boring on the inside compared to the other G.I. Joe stuff where it's a lot more exciting thematically. Now, what is the solution for something like Marvel Legends or Black Series or Power Rangers? How do we get it so we can see the figure as well as not spending so much on plastic? Well, Hasbro already gave us the solution, but didn't go with it. Fortnite. So I don't actually open any of these. This is my dad's. But Fortnite had this really cool idea of having a big, large art piece, small window, accessory loadout, and it's in a plastic reduced packaging. Not quite plastic free. There's little plastic tie downs on the figures still, but those could be swapped out for the cardboard tie downs. And then Hasbro could maybe keep just a small window so you can see the figure inside to give it some visual intrigue. Not completely open, but not completely closed. This was a really cool packaging design, and I think that this is something they could do going forward. So while yes, taking plastic out of the packaging reduces plastic waste, they're also increasing paper waste. While you do have an easier way to recycle paper as opposed to plastic, but hard plastic for me, at least in my city, I can just toss it in with the paper and the cardboard. So it wasn't really a, hey, I couldn't recycle the plastic part of the packaging. And then also, you have to expect people to recycle. So does this reduce waste? Not really. But what it does reduce is cost, because yeah, plastic costs more than cardboard. Honestly, Hasbro just increased their prices where their competitors didn't. And, well, let's look at the competitors' packaging. Mattel's Masters of the Universe, still using plastic. $23 6-inch figures, $17 5.5-inch figures, still plastic all over the place. Todd McFarlane is the toy industry's rule breaker, but $20 DC figures are still $20 3 years later, and his Spawn figures are $25. And most of these have brand new parts at that price point, and again, plastic. And actually probably too much plastic. They're honestly gigantic boxes. Bandai's Anime Hero line is still $20 after several years and everybody else going up in price. They did reduce the amount of plastic in the packaging for the Anime Heroes Digimon because there's less of a window, but still using plastic to keep the figure secure. Playmates Star Trek, $13 figures, still using plastic bubbles. Then again, it is a retro look, which can be said for part of the conversation. NECA's a small toy company, and they use a lot of plastic in their packaging. Probably could get reduced, but there's something to be said about the presentation. Artwork on the front, open it up to see the figure, pretty cool, and that just takes extra cardboard. And though NECA has jumped the price of Ultimates from around $35 to around $43, so take what you can get, but that is a nice looking packaging. And lastly, Super 7 Ultimates have always had this double layered cardboard sleeve on top of a lot of plastic to hold all these accessories together. And these figures started at about 45, went to 55, some are 65, some are 75, some are still 55. Pricing's getting a little weird, but that's still a lot of plastic that ultimately a lot of people are going to get rid of. So when it comes to the plastic discussion, does it help with costs? Because if it really did bring down the cost on things, I feel like some of these companies would be doing less plastic. Maybe Bandai is the only one that's like, let's take out the plastic and keep the prices low. But hey, that's just how the industry goes. And all I can do is speculate, but it's really interesting to compare company to company. How much plastic are they using in their packaging? So I guess my fair point with Hasbro is, are they doing it to be environmentally friendly? Maybe, but that wasn't the initial intention. It definitely was to reduce the cost of the packaging as the cost of everything else went up. However, talking about Hasbro prices is a whole different discussion. We're just talking about packaging, but hey, this is a smaller box than most, and it probably costs less to produce, and will probably keep the price of these figures down, so why don't we do this for all the Transformers? So I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. I know it was a bit lengthy and in-depth, but I really wanted to cover this topic in as much detail as possible. It's why I waited so long to do it. When we first got the pictures of the plastic-free packaging, I wasn't that impressed, but I was like, all right, well, maybe the internal structures of the packaging are good. And honestly, out of all of them, G.I. Joe made it work. I think the G.I. Joe packaging experience with the plastic-free is actually better than the plastic window because of all the interior dressing inside the figures. It makes it feel like a more a fun experience. Having the weapons locker, having the figure in its own tray, that's just really cool. And I think that it's more exciting than when you open a Marvel Legends and it's like, oh, hey, here's your mummy-wrapped figure. Or you open your Transformer going, hey, does it have all the parts? Because someone could just reach inside of it. So I think there's definitely room for improvement. And it's definitely something that Hasbro should be looking at and trying to improve upon. And I hope that maybe this video does reach Hasbro in some way. And it kind of gives them, sort of a general reaction to what do I think from sort of a business perspective. Because I understand wanting to cut the plastic out of the packaging for cost reasons. For environmental reasons, sure, but that's like putting a dent into a mountain and expecting the mountain to fall over. It's not. It's just the reality of it. But I'm curious to see what will happen with Hasbro making the step forward to reduce the plastic waste from the packaging and seeing if other companies will follow or if they'll say, yeah, we like our toys being seen instead. So hopefully I wasn't overly critical here, but I felt like in general, the plastic-free packaging idea is not terrible. It just needs a lot of work, and it probably needed a lot of work before they tried to roll it out. It just feels like it came too fast, especially with the Spider-Man figures and especially with Transformers. It's just too quick, and they needed to work through the design phases a little bit longer. But if you enjoyed this video, there's plenty more like this on the channel, and there will be more analysis and breakdown videos in the future, including one talking about crowdfunding items and also one talking about the toy industry in general. So don't miss out on a video, hit subscribe and the notification bell, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment down below and tell me your thoughts on the plastic-free packaging situation. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Also be sure to check out my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at DarkClaw643 and Hero Club at hero-club.com for toy news and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.